What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, man. You know we got this big fight coming up. Coming up next weekend. Terrence Crawford and Jeff Horn. I made a video about it earlier today, but I'm gonna follow it up with this one because something else came out. Man, I'm loving this fight. I'm loving the whole thing. I've been loving the build up to it from pretty much, since Jeff Horn came on the scene, man, going to fight Manny Pacquiao. But basically what he's doing now is he's saying, hey, man, top rank trying to sabotage you, man. He thinks there's some funny business going on there, man, that they're trying to make him uncomfortable and put him in a tough situation while he's on the road. And I got to tell you, my first response to what he said, and I'll get into that, my first reaction was, man, come on, man. You guys are doing a whole lot of complaining, man. A whole lot of complaining. But at the same time, that's Bob Arum. So, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that they are trying to mess with you a little bit, man. You know, that's what happens when you get on the road. You know what I mean? People can play games with you, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Now, before I get into that, though, hey, definitely appreciate, hit subscribe, like, share the videos on the channel. Attend the live streams. Be doing a live stream probably before this goes up to talk about some things with Dillian White. Thank you to everybody that supports the channel through Patreon, Venmo, and the super chats and the live streams, man. Much appreciated. Supporting the cause. We're doing good things with it. So thank you very much, man. We encourage you to support, and thank you for the people who do support. Now, let me go through this a little bit about what he said. And this came out with an article. Came out today, an article by Ray Wheatley on FightNews.com. WBO welterweight champion Jeff Horn and his trainer Glenn Rushton are not happy with the top-ranked gym in Las Vegas ahead of his clash with WBO mandatory challenger Terrence Crawford on June 9th. The Americans are doing everything to try to rattle me, Horn told Fox Sports. I got off a long flight from Brisbane and did a few rounds to loosen up, but it was just too hot to train in that gym for too long. I could have damaged myself. Who builds a brick and tin gym in the desert with no air conditioning anyway? Rushton added, the facilities and conditions here are very oppressive. We were expected to work out at 100-degree heat, and I believe the temperature is going to be above 100 next week ahead of the bout. The top-ranked gym has a tin roof, so the heat is stifling. The people who run it told us the air conditioning didn't work. Then we tried to get the big metal roller doors lifted, but they were locked tight, and no one had the key. The punching bags were in poor shape, and the speedball was totally deflated. We eventually got one of the roller doors up yesterday, but we don't want to continue training here. Yeah, man. That's Bob Arum, man. That's how he does. That's how he do. What you expect, man? What do you expect? You better go somewhere where you can get away from your competition, man. It's just like a football field, when they used to water when you get a good running back and they water the lines. The sidelines. So if you go near those sidelines, it forces you to run down the middle of the field. Otherwise, you're going to jump over there and slip and fall. All kind of stuff like that. Tom Brady's, deflate gate. All kind of things like that happen when you get on the road, man. That's just what it is. That's just what it is. And hey, I don't know what to say though, because pretty much everybody has to do that when they get on the road to box. So, however, though, I read the comment section on the article this came out with, and there were some people saying, telling Jeff Horn, don't cry, everybody, there's a bunch of boxers that train there, and that's just usual. That's just the usual conditions, and whatever, man. But I wouldn't be surprised, man, if they did deflate the medicine ball, they did deflate the bags and make it a little more difficult for you to train. Because Bob Arum is going to want, if you're not going to sign with Bob Arum wants you to lose, and Bob Arum is a vet, man. I mean, without a doubt, top rank. headed by Bob Arum, they know boxing, and they'll do whatever they have to do with inside the rule and probably outside the rules as well, to see that their man walks away with the title. Now, I don't necessarily think that this is going to make much of a difference in the bout. It might be a little minor inconvenience, a little head games that are being played, but that's just par for the course. Now, this is, however, man, one thing in a long line of complaints for this bout, coming from the Horn camp, from the postponement of the bout, as if people remember, this bout was changed to this date because of an injury that Terrence Crawford was supposed to have suffered. I got to tell you, I still have a hard time with that injury because it was just so convenient. But it wound up getting moved, and that's the first thing that they accused, that they said that there was gamesmanship going on from Terrence Crawford's camp. At the point, and Bob Arum, saying, "Hey, man, this is just a little knick-knack on his hands." And I think they might have called him soft, said some other things about that, but just generally saying, that they thought that Terrence Crawford and Bob Arum were trying to throw their team off by changing the date, and also changing the date. Now, my understanding is from my Aussie subscribers. Shout out to Brisbane, and much appreciate the subscribers from Australia. I've been a supporter of my man Jeff Horn as much as I can be since I've seen him fight. Because hey, man, I think the dude's a good boxer, and I think he's going to do a better job than a lot of people think he is. But at the same time, it's Terrence Crawford, man, and that's going to be that's going to be something else. But anyway, the fact that they thought that Bob Arum was playing around with that date, I can kind of go with it. But then it kind of they kept rolling with it. And I think the second thing that they complained about were the horsehair gloves. So for people that don't know, and I don't think that there's a lot of people that don't know, their horsehair gloves are supposed to be what they call puncher's gloves. And I think also Reyes gloves or puncher's gloves, but there's a special brand of, God, what is the name of the Everlast gloves? That's the brand, the Everlast gloves, where they are made of horsehair. And they're saying that when they get hot or they hit, or, you hit too many times, that you really can force the horsehair away from the knuckles, which is basically making it feel like a, just like you don't have a glove on at all, is the explanation, my understanding, of the concern that Glenn Rushton and Dean Lonergan and the promoter from Duco Promotions and Jeff Horn had about these gloves when it was rumored to have happened. Now, Brian McIntyre, or other more widely known as Bomac, came back and said, "Look, they've never worn horsehair gloves. They have no intention on wearing horsehair gloves, so that's really not an issue." But it doesn't seem as if Dean Lonergan or Glenn Rushton believe what Bomac is saying, because they continually bring up the horsehair glove. So that's the second thing. So now they're coming in with another complaint. Now the third complaint is that the Top Rank gym has a tin roof. They shut the air conditioning off on us. They lock the doors. They have the punching bags are in bad shape. The speed ball is totally deflated, right? All of those type of things. It just keeps going on and on. And so at this point, I'm wondering, which is the case? Are they getting rattled, or are they trying to rattle Terrence Crawford and Terrence Crawford's camp? Right, by saying, like, I thought originally when they started talking about the boxing gloves, the horsehair gloves, that they were just trying to, maybe do some preventative nagging or preventative complaining by ensuring that Terrence Crawford doesn't wear that type of glove. They even went so far in talking about those gloves in saying that it was going to be a detriment to Terrence Crawford. Like, okay, if Terrence Crawford wants to wear horsehair gloves, then he might just get something broken, right? Speaking about his jaw, right? So, but now they're complaining about this. That seems to be a little bit more like, look, you have to just, you just have to bear down and, and deal with it, because you can't expect ideal conditions when you get on the road. And getting on the road, and I do believe that this is definitely the first time Jeff Horn is fought in the United States. So he's going to have, I believe the time zone difference to get used to. He's going to have food issues unless he packed his own food and all of that stuff. Right. He's going to have to deal with the fact that he's not sleeping at home. He's sleeping in a hotel. Right now you're basically training in the opposition's gym. That's a lot of stuff to overcome. So maybe I'm just thinking at this point in time, Glenn Rushton is getting a little ragged, a little rattled, a little nervous about this. Now, that's what you deal. Again, that's just what you get. In my opinion, that's what you get when you're dealing with when you deal with Bob Arum and you deal with Top Rank. They play games like that. They actually played games. He, being Jeff Horn benefited from the games that Top Rank played with Manny Pacquiao. Having Manny Pacquiao travel overseas, right? Overseas from the Philippines to fight in Australia against a guy that was very little was known about him, but who clearly, looking at him, hindsight is 2020, is clearly is a world-class boxer. And having people saying things around Manny Pacquiao like, look, the only way that Jeff Horn can win this bout is if he trips on his way if Manny Pacquiao trips on his way into the ring and knocks himself out, against the turnbuckle, all kind of things like that, where the tone really was set by pretty much everybody in the lead up to the fight that Jeff Horn wasn't a real competitor. But then the thing that really kicked it over for me was that you have excuse me, man, I can't stand. Sometimes I forget to turn this volume off when I'm making these videos. But you have a rematch clause, right? Where Jeff Horn gets a rematch clause that is very, very favorable to Jeff Horn. In that Manny Pacquiao gets to exercise the rematch clause, but the fight has to be in Australia. How in the world was Jeff Horn able to negotiate that against a guy who is clearly the A side? I'm actually getting real annoyed with this A side, B side conversation because of what's going on with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. But regardless, how does somebody who has the most leverage, should have the most leverage in a negotiation, give up a key term like that and basically make it a 50-50 situation where if Manny Pacquiao wants to exercise his rematch clause, then he has to fight on the road? I don't even get how that happens. It's not like Jeff Horn was some world beater who was, who had a ton of fans in Australia and was really the reason that the fight was doing well, right? Or the reason that the Queensland government had decided to have the bout there in the first place. He wasn't. In fact, when they were negotiating the deal the second time around, and Bob Arum was trying to solidify the funding for the bout, then the Queensland, I can't remember if it was the Queensland government, but it was some government officials was like, look, we're not going to approve any money for this bout until we know for sure that Manny Pacquiao was going to be there. So the people who in the Australia, at least this is my reading of the situation, the people in Australia who really who are funding in large part the bout, they even acknowledged that Manny Pacquiao was the reason that they were investing the money, not Jeff Horn. Now that might change if, in a situation where, if Jeff Horn was able to pull his victory off against Terrence Crawford, but it wasn't there. That wasn't the situation at the time. So right there, and this is what I'm saying about when you're dealing with, when some of these guys are talking about dealing with other promoters who have sketchy pasts, pasts, pasts. You have sketchy pasts. When somebody might be doing something to take advantage of somebody else, don't be surprised if they, when it suits them, that they don't turn around and do the same thing to you. Case in point, in my opinion, is a situation like what's happening with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, right? Where Eddie Hearn said recently, now I've got to actually see this where this is written. I didn't listen to the whole interview, the whole IFL interview, but my understanding is that Eddie Hearn said that he wanted Deontay Wilder to face Dominic Breazeale on DAZN. Now, having dealt with Deontay Wilder, having dealt with Eddie Hearn in this negotiation for Anthony Joshua, why in the world would he then turn around in almost any scenario take money from Eddie Hearn? And beyond that, what happened with Luis Ortiz, right? Luis Ortiz is somebody that signed with Matchroom, did 3 fights and got dumped. He did 3 fights in the anticipation that they were going to make a bout between Luis Ortiz and Anthony Joshua. That bait, from what I understand, was waved in the face of Luis Ortiz to get Luis Ortiz to face to sign with Matchroom. But then what did Eddie Hearn turn around and do? He turned around and basically starved him out. Well, gave him 3 fights. I think, God, man, what do you think? Like 3 fights inside of a month or a month and a half, some crazy amount of fights, right? Turned around and said, hey, well, this guy didn't look very good. He didn't perform very, very well. So, hey, he's just gone ahead and do what he's got to do. I don't care about him anymore. And he ain't never fighting. He's never going to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua, right? Pretty much was his attitude on that. So, why would Deontay Wilder turn around and agree to a multiple bout deal on DAZN with Eddie Hearn, right? So, same thing. Jeff Horn, I believe, from the tone of what I hear from Dean Lonergan and from what I hear from Glenn Rushton, is experiencing the same thing. Right after, when Top Rank was trying to sign and keep Jeff Horn, what was he? He was the next guy could be a superstar, right? He was a superstar. He was this, that, and the other thing. One of the strongest, best boxers in the whole promotional thing, right? When he had right before the option was out on Jeff Horn. But hey, man, but when the Manny Pacquiao bout didn't happen, and I presume Jeff Horn was acting like he wants to stay with Duco Promotions and not be primarily promoted by Top Rank, what happens? All of a sudden, Top Rank is making changes to dates without consulting them. He's got him in raggedy gyms, treating him like anything other than the superstar that he was talking about when he was acting like this is the greatest, one of his best signings and a potential superstar. So, it is what it is, man. And I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't know whether this talk is just a lot of, stress and anticipation, which is reasonable for Horn's camp. I don't think that this is a scenario where they're really trying to throw off Terrence Crawford, just because I don't see how possibly how it could result in that. But that's what you did. That's what you get when you deal with Top Rank, right? Guillermo Rigondeaux was loved by Top Rank, I'm sure, for a couple minutes when they were trying to sign him. But what happened after a couple bouts? He winds up thrown in the trash can. That's the danger of dealing with these promoters. And even when they're offering, especially when they're offering big signing bonuses and making big promises. They'll make these big promises until they don't like what they see, and then they're looking for a way to get you out of that door. Or if they really like what they see in you, they're trying to find a way to make sure that you never leave it, right? And definitely if you're on a match on their card like this, they very well might be trying to pull every trick in the bag to, every trick in the book to make sure that their guy wins and they get hold of that belt, like negotiating with the WBC to have Terrence Crawford be the first mandatory bout opponent for Jeff Horn, and have that announced even before Jeff Horn has his first voluntary. So, it's just a lot of stuff that's crazy with that. But, at the end of the day, man, I'm really looking forward to this bout, and I'm hoping that it really, is an exciting bout. I'm wishing the best for both boxers. And, I think it's going to be a lot better match than some people think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.